This is the story of a nation that witnessed empires, endured wars, and survived exile, yet never allowed its identity to disappear. Jewish history is not just a story of a religion, but a tale of survival, belief, and a struggle that spans thousands of years and has deeply influenced the world's civilization, law, and politics. But the question is, why did this nation go through so many trials? And how did it still manage to preserve its identity today? This is the complete story of Jewish history. Jewish history begins thousands of years ago, in a region of the Middle East that today includes parts of Israel and Palestine. During this time, the world was divided into small tribes and early civilizations. Each group worshipped its own gods, and power was considered the ultimate law. But in the midst of these conditions, a group emerged that introduced a completely different idea. This people, known as the Hebrews, believed that the entire universe had only one creator, who is all-powerful and has no partners. This idea was revolutionary at the time, because most people believed in natural elements such as the sun, the moon, fire, and the sea as gods. But the Hebrews introduced a way of thinking that later became the foundation of the world's major religions. The early Jewish people lived a simple lifestyle. Most of them were shepherds, traveling with their livestock across deserts and grazing lands. Their society was tribal, made up of small families and clans, each with its own leader. They believed in law, morality, and an organized way of life, and their lives revolved entirely around their religion. A major and central figure appears in Jewish history, known as Abraham. Abraham is considered the founder of the belief, who strengthened the concept of monotheism. It is said that he rejected the polytheistic systems of his time and declared his faith in one God alone. This step was extremely dangerous at that time because it challenged the entire social and religious system, but this moment became the foundation of Jewish history. Abraham and his descendants went on a long journey, known as migration. They believed that God had promised them a special land, known as the Promised Land. This idea later became a core part of Jewish identity, as it was not only a religious belief, but also a historical and geographical connection. After Abraham, another important figure appears in his lineage, Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons, and from them, 12 tribes were formed. They were called the children of Israel, and this name later became associated with the Jewish people. Over time, this group faced a major crisis, and they migrated to Egypt. Initially, they were respected in Egypt, but later, they were enslaved and forced to endure hard labor. This was the time when the Jewish people learned patience, resilience, and how to face hardship. As the Jewish people established their identity, their beliefs and religious system began to grow stronger over time. This was a period when it was no longer just tradition, but a complete system of faith and law emerging that deeply influenced every aspect of their lives. In Jewish history, the role of prophets was extremely important. These prophets were leaders who called their people toward the message of God and guided them toward the right path. They were not only spiritual guides, but also reformers of society and morality. They taught their people that human beings must stand for justice, truth, and honesty. One of the fundamental concepts in Jewish belief is the covenant. According to this belief, God made a promise with human beings, and in return, humans accepted a responsibility. This covenant was a kind of moral agreement in which God guides human beings and humans follow his commandments. This concept became the foundation of Jewish religion and remains central to this day. Jewish beliefs were preserved in a sacred book, known as the Torah. The Torah is not just a religious text, but a complete guide containing laws, moral principles, historical events, and ways of living. It is the central pillar of Jewish identity and is preserved with the highest level of respect. In Judaism, there are principles for every aspect of life. From food and daily practices to worship, clear laws are defined for everything. These laws were not only religious, but also helped maintain social order. They shaped the Jewish people into a disciplined and organized society. According to Jewish belief, the purpose of worship is not just performing rituals, but building a relationship with God. In their worship, they pray, read sacred texts, and strive to live a moral life. Worship is not limited to specific times, but is part of everyday life. The prophets of Judaism gave humanity many important moral principles, such as act with justice, avoid oppression, care for the poor, and embrace truth. These teachings are not only religious, but also became fundamental principles for human society. Jewish history mentions many prophets who guided their people and brought messages of hope during difficult times. These prophets were not only religious leaders, but reformers, guides, and historical figures. As time passed, Jewish beliefs became even stronger. Trials, wars, and exile did not weaken this faith, but instead made it stronger. This is what made the Jewish people different from the rest of the world. As time passed, the Jewish people began to transform from a tribal group into a more organized society. This was the period when their history entered a new phase, where it was no longer just about belief, but also about power, governance, and the idea of a state. In the beginning, the Jewish people were divided into tribes, but over time, a system emerged that brought them together into a united kingdom. This unity not only made them stronger internally, but also enabled them to face external threats. During this time, a significant and well-known figure appears: King David. He was a warrior, a leader, and a ruler of great wisdom, who transformed the tribes into a united nation. Under his leadership, the Jewish people gained power and achieved victories against their enemies. His era laid the foundation of a strong state that would continue to grow in the years to come. King David made Jerusalem the center of his kingdom. This city was not only politically important, but also became deeply sacred in religious terms. It later became the central place of Jewish belief, and its importance continues to this day. After King David, his son Solomon became the ruler. Solomon is known for his wisdom and intelligence, and his era is considered the golden age of Jewish history. During his reign, the kingdom experienced economic growth, political stability, and remarkable development in construction. During Solomon's time, a great temple was built. This structure was not only religiously significant, but also a symbol of unity and identity for the Jewish people. It became the center of their faith, where they practiced worship and spiritual connection. During this period, the Jewish people emerged as a strong kingdom. They had a powerful army, an organized government, and a clear religious identity. This was the time when they established their presence in the world as a significant and rising power. But every strong kingdom eventually develops weaknesses. Over time, political disagreements began to rise, and the kingdom split into two parts: the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom. This division created future instability and marked the beginning of decline. After the division, the kingdom became weaker, and surrounding powerful empires began to attack. This was a time when strong empires easily conquered weaker states, and this situation became a major challenge for the Jewish people. As the Jewish kingdom grew weaker internally, External powers began to take advantage of the situation. This was a time when powerful empires competed with each other to dominate weaker states. During this period, a powerful empire emerged, known as the Babylonian Empire. The rulers of Babylon expanded their influence across the region and eventually targeted the Jewish kingdom. This attack was not just a war, but the beginning of total destruction. The Babylonian army attacked Jerusalem and caused massive destruction to the city. Even the Temple of Solomon was destroyed. This was the moment when the Jewish people lost their greatest religious and political symbol. It became one of the most painful turning points in their history, a moment that changed their world forever. After the attack, the Jewish people were forced out of their homeland and taken to Babylon. This exile became a major test for them because they were separated from their land, their center was destroyed, and their freedom was taken away. It was a time filled with hardship and struggle. During exile, the Jewish people faced a critical question. Could they preserve their identity, or would they lose their traditions over time? This question stood at the center of their history, but surprisingly, they managed to preserve their identity. They kept their language, religion, and traditions alive, no matter where they were. Over time, the power of Babylon began to decline, and a new power emerged. This new force allowed the Jewish people to return to their homeland. It opened a new door of hope, because after losing their land, they were finally given a chance to return. But their struggles did not end there. Another powerful empire rose, the Roman Empire. The Romans attacked Jerusalem once again and destroyed the city. The temple was damaged again, and the Jewish people were forced to leave their land once more. This was the moment when the Jewish people began to spread across the world. Despite all these hardships, the Jewish people did not disappear. Instead, after every fall, they rose again. And this resilience is what makes them unique in history. After the attacks of the Roman Empire, a new era began for the Jewish people, an era in which they were forced to live far from their homeland, scattered across different parts of the world. This was not just a migration, but a transformation that reshaped their entire history. When Jerusalem was destroyed once again, and the Jewish people were forced out, they settled in different regions, including Europe, the Middle East, and later, other parts of the world. This spread is known in history as the Jewish diaspora. The Jewish people were no longer tied to a single land, but had become a global nation. As the Jewish people moved into different countries, their experiences varied from place to place. In some regions, they found opportunities in trade and knowledge, and were accepted into society. But in others, they faced discrimination and were forced to live under strict conditions. This contrast became a defining part of their history. Despite being scattered across the world, the Jewish people did not lose their identity. They preserved their language, their religious laws, and their traditions. This became their greatest strength and what set them apart from others. Over time, the Jewish people made progress in many fields, especially in trade, science, and education. Through skill and dedication, they strengthened their place in the world. The period of diaspora was not easy. The Jewish people faced repeated challenges, but each time, they rose again. This resilience became the greatest strength of their history. Over time, the Jewish people became a global identity. They were no longer limited to one land, but present across the world. Yet their hearts remained connected to their history and belief. For centuries, despite being spread across the world, the Jewish people faced a harsh reality, a reality of continuous persecution. In many countries and across different eras, they were targeted for various reasons. Across different parts of Europe, hatred against Jewish people began to grow. They were often blamed for controlling the economy or being responsible for social problems. This prejudice grew stronger over time, making life increasingly difficult for them. During World War II, a tragic event occurred that shook the entire world: the Holocaust. In this tragedy, millions of Jewish people were systematically killed. They were imprisoned in camps, forced into labor, and millions lost their lives. It remains one of the greatest human tragedies in history. The Holocaust deeply shocked the world. It was no longer just a problem for one group, but a question for all humanity. Could humans commit such extreme acts of cruelty? After this event, the world began to focus more on human rights, and efforts were made to prevent such tragedies from happening again. The Holocaust is remembered across the world. It teaches us that hatred can be extremely dangerous, and humanity must never be ignored. This is not just a historical event, but a lesson that must be remembered by future generations. After World War II and the Holocaust, the world entered a new era. For the Jewish people, this was not just a historical moment, but a time of new beginnings. In 1948, a major historical event took place that changed Jewish history forever. This was the moment when the State of Israel was established. Israel was founded on the land that Jewish people consider their historical and religious homeland. For them, this moment marked the result of centuries of struggle. After the establishment of the state, Jewish people from around the world began to migrate to this region. This was an emotional and historic moment, as after centuries, they were returning closer to their identity and homeland. It was a new beginning, but it also brought new challenges. In this new era, several conflicts emerged, as the region had long been connected with different peoples and interests. As a result, border issues, political conflicts, and regional tensions became part of the modern reality. Today, Jewish communities around the world, as well as in Israel, play a significant role in many fields, especially in technology, science, medicine, and the economy. Through education and expertise, they have built a strong position in the world. Even in the modern era, Jewish people continue to preserve their culture and beliefs, their religious practices, traditions, and collective identity remain strong, continuing a legacy that spans thousands of years. Jewish people are no longer just a religious or historical group. They have had a major influence across many fields, from science to politics, and from economics to education. Their presence is clearly visible. Jewish history has not ended. It is an ongoing journey, spanning thousands of years, with struggles, exile, and achievements. It is a story that is still being written today. Jewish history teaches us that if a people remain committed to their identity, belief, and purpose, they can face any challenge the world presents. This is not just the story of one people, but an important chapter in human history. Jewish history is not just the story of one people. It is a story of survival, faith, and centuries of struggle. From exile to return, from persecution to strength, it is a journey that still continues today. And it leaves us with one powerful question: does history break a people, or does it make them stronger? If you found this story powerful and meaningful, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more deep historical documentaries.